Newswatch. Last week, the ABC ran a hit job on Cardinal George Pell, Australia's most senior Catholic, suggesting he himself had abused two boys more than 30 years ago as he threw children off his shoulders in a pool, and that he stood naked in front of a couple of boys in a suspicious way as he dried himself in a change room.
Grab you. Around the testes, around the anus.
Pell just had the towel over his right shoulder, still facing the boys, and the boys were looking at him.
George Pell has strongly denied the claims, and I detailed last week how other people making allegations equally old against him have been proved to be completely wrong. Memories change. Now, the ABC has distributed a memo to staff warning them to be very careful in repeating these allegations. For instance, this ABC memo tells staff to make all references to the allegations specific. For instance, not to claim Pell abused the children, but that he had touched them around the genital area. Same thing with the claim that Pell once dried himself for too long naked. The ABC tells staff there is no allegation of touching, and they must not say it's also alleged George Pell abused boys in change rooms. The ABC also tells staff to avoid repeating from that original 7:30 report some of the more emotive grabs, emotive footage which suggests Pell is guilty or the allegations are true. Well, joining me is Gerard Henderson, head of the Sydney Institute, columnist for The Australian and author of the Media Watchdog blog. Gerard, it's good to see you, and thanks for uncovering this memo and establishing it is in fact a genuine ABC memo. What does this memo suggest to you?
Well, after Media Watchdog went out on Friday, at the weekend I got sent this memo, so I checked it with the ABC and they confirmed it was authentic. It's a poorly written memo. It's supposed to come from ABC Legal and ABC News. It looks like it was put together in haste. And what it instructs people, first up, is any report should commence with Cardinal Pell's denials of the allegations. But that's not what the 7:30 report did last Wednesday. That didn't start with denials. That commenced with accusations. What it seems to me is the ABC's uncertain about this. They've put together a hasty memo to their journalists and their producers and telling them to be careful. A poorly written document, but an authentic document, but not one you would expect to come from a legal department of a public service organisation at all. So it seems to me like it was done in haste, in some kind of panic. Now, I'm told by the ABC that this is pretty normal. They put out these documents if anything's contentious. I'm not certain that's true. I would very much doubt you'd put out something as shoddy as this unless you felt there was a sudden need to do it.
One thing that really struck me, no, I agree, but one thing that struck me was telling them to avoid grabs for those who don't know, pieces of footage. Why avoid grabs suggesting Pell was guilty when the whole 7:30 story that ran for 30 minutes suggested exactly that?
Well, that's right. And not only suggested it, but they put in reenactments of boys in swimming pools. So there were reenactments which were supposed to support the theory. And now ABC News and ABC Legal is saying, well, don't show any of that now, and we've got to be very careful. So I'm not sure why they've run into this what appears to be a quick retreat. But what we have to remember is what you said. This program ran for a whole 30 minutes, which is quite extraordinary. There was a lot of preparation went into it. This went on 4 months. And the ABC, unlike, I mean, you would expect the Royal Commission or the police to go looking for witnesses. The ABC went looking for people. So this was a huge amount of preparation. And then it goes to air. And within a couple of days, the ABC's putting out a rushed memo saying, well, look, lead with the denials, not with the allegations. So I can only read what it says, and it seems to me they're very unsure about what they're saying. But time will tell.
Well, I was also struck, Gerard, it all seems to me rather thin stuff, right? Rather thin stuff. And the ABC didn't include material that went to the credibility of one of the chief witnesses about a police record, etc., etc. Now, why did it include the dressing room claim, which was dated from, which went to another town, right, where the Sydney Morning Herald, for instance, claimed that George Pell was a parish priest, which he wasn't, and that all that we really know is that one man looking at George Pell, drying himself, stood for what he thought was too long in front of some boys. Now, why would you include something so hotly contested, so ambiguous, and not a criminal offence anyway?
Well, only if you wanted to target the person you were reporting about. The ABC did focus on Mr Tyke, I think, from Torquay, who made these allegations. Of course, he is not and doesn't claim to be a victim. He was an adult who claims to have seen certain events. Now then, when Fairfax Media, both The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald and also the Canberra Times, followed up with this on Friday, they said that George Pell at the time was a local priest. Now, he wasn't. Now, it's taken Fairfax Media until today, after emails I've sent them, to take the word local out, but they've left everything in, and they tell me they're not going to publish a correction. So this is a cover-up of a report. You write a report, you say that Pell's a local priest. This report in 1980, 84, 86, 87 in Torquay. This report goes all around the world, and when it's pointed out that it's wrong, you take the word local out and leave the rest in. And then Fairfax Media sent me this in an email, which they headed not for publication, so I'm not supposed to tell anyone. Talk about a cover-up. I mean, fancy one of Australia's leading newspapers sending a letter to someone and telling him it's not for publication. The ABC and Fairfax Media is part of the Right to Know coalition, but I can't get any answers out of the ABC on these matters, nor from Fairfax Media that explain how these kind of errors were made. When I asked the ABC why only of the independent people, only a critics of Pell were interviewed on the program, they said to me, well, they wouldn't interview anyone who supported him. And I said, why not? And they said this in writing, and they said, well, because he didn't come on himself. But that's hardly an answer. You're supposed to have 30 minutes, and they put on Terry Laidler, who's a well-known critic of George Pell, a former Catholic priest, and a former employee of the ABC. So you sort of go to your mates, and you get someone to come along who says what you want them to say, and they say what you want them to say, which is essentially that George Pell should be sacked, which is the whole campaign of those in the ABC involved in this, and those in Fairfax Media involved in this. They want George Pell sacked from his seeing a position at the Vatican. That's essentially what it's all about. And Terry Laidler concluded the 30-minute program by saying that at the invitation of the ABC to come along and say that.
No, look, exactly. This really smells of a stitch-up now.